Welcome to Chatting with Entrepreneurs. Hello, and welcome to Chatting with Entrepreneurs podcast. I am your host, Carla Holland. I'm the Executive Director of Texas Tech Institute for Small Business. The Institute for Small Business has 4 federal and state-funded programs that provide free and low-cost services to small businesses in Northwest Texas. We have our Small Business Development Center, our Apex Accelerator, our Texas Manufacturing Assistance Center, our Rural Business Opportunity Program. Today we are chatting with Jeff Bond, who's the owner of Trade Jobs located in Weatherford, Texas. Welcome, Jeff, and thank you for taking time out of your schedule and sharing your entrepreneurial journey.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So, Jeff, tell me about yourself and a little bit about your company, Trade Jobs.
Sure. So a little bit about myself. I am a Red Raider. I graduated from the College of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources and got a degree in interdisciplinary agriculture. Started off my career as a high school ag teacher and decided to move into a different direction. And, did some, what was in sales, did some other jobs. But back in 2016, I was hired as the general manager for a heating and air conditioning company here in the DFW area. Within the next couple of years, myself and a business partner ended up buying the company. It was a small family-owned company. We ended up purchasing the company, and still own that to this day. We're still co-owners in that company. Trade Jobs came about in October of 2020. Just from I had a key employee, one of my best guys, come to me and say that he needed to he was going to go to work for his family company. His brother-in-laws were starting a construction company. They wanted to bring him on as their AC guy. And this guy had been with me since he was just a helper. He was kind of a key man at that time. And he moved on, and that was okay, right? We want to make sure that we're treating our employees in a way that we're educating them and furthering their career, that they are given other opportunities at times. So he moved on. The process of hiring his replacement was just a nightmare. It was, to be just quite honest with you, it was extremely expensive. Trying to create job ads on several different platforms, using supply houses, using any technique we could find to replace someone of his caliber was very, very difficult. After about 90 days, I did end up finding a guy, hired him, and within 30 days, that guy had totaled one of my trucks and was fired. So it was just a complete nightmare of a mess. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It was terrible. But with that came the idea not the idea, but just the question of, why is this process so hard? Why is it so expensive, and why is it so hard? So I started talking to, technicians within my industry, within the other trades. If you had a hiring platform that was your ideal platform, what would it look like? If you were looking for a job or wanted to create your profile so that you could be found, what does that look like? And it just started through a lot of, I actually was listening to a podcast, and the idea came up of a job board. And that was right after all this happened. And I'm like, I can do this. I can figure out how to get this done. So started the process of, literally writing it down. I've still got it. I've got it, or just started writing down in a legal pad. And I think it said like, job search website, what will it do? And it's just pages and pages and pages of stuff. I then went through the process. I had a friend here in town who had used the SBDC locally to open his pharmacy. And he put me in contact with the SBDC here through Tarleton. My mentors through Tarleton, started working with him, and then got the company accepted into the Business Incubator Tech Fort Worth, which is the City of Fort Worth Business Incubator. Went through that program for a little over a year, and then kind of launched the website, more of a beta version. Launched it out, it did what I wanted it to do. Tested kind of the theory of it, went and did a lot of talks at trade schools here in the DFW area, and then got good feedback, realized it was something that I think could work. But at the time, like anything, it needed a lot more money and a lot more time thrown at it. So I archived the website, and at this time, I'm still running the sales and marketing division of my air conditioning company. Mm-hmm. So archived the website and just thought, talk to a couple of different firms about doing investments in it. nothing that really stuck, but got the opportunity to talk to a company that creates a software platform for the trades industries, a sales platform, back in January, and started a conversation with them. And it was kind of like, hey, you basically have the client base that we need, that I need. Talks went through several months, and actually August 1st, they bought the majority of the company.
Trade jobs
So
or?
they did. They bought the majority of trade jobs on August 1st.
Oh,
But I'm the president and founder and run the company for them. They still run their company, but they bought the majority stake of it to to invest the capital into it, and then to use the resources that they have through the market that they've already cornered with the sales software for the trades to help get the word out and market it to their clients as well.
Jeff, you said so much. I have questions that I would ask. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. One thing that I took away, you talked about how you had a business and then you saw this need to hire. I would say if I did a poll of small businesses and large businesses about hiring employees, we always say it's challenging. You hire someone because, right, because who shows up for the interview isn't always who shows up for the job. And so you saw this need and then you were able to create something. Why did you decide the online portal versus just being a staffing agency and people call and you send them out and do it that way?
I was hoping that it would just run in the background. I keep the website up to date. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing, and it's just churning. Obviously, it was a lot more difficult than that. I mean, it's been a lot of work, but that's why, the staffing companies are great. It's not within the industry that I'm in with the skilled trades, and there's great recruiting companies out there, and they do it well, but most of us do not use them. Most of us don't use a recruiting firm. We use we use your Indeeds, your Zips, your Monsters, all of those. We use our local supply houses because that's where the guys are going in and out of, and gals are going in and out of every day buying material. So, the guy behind the counter is knows what's going on, who's happy where, who's hiring, who's looking. So that's kind of the traditional way that our industry has done hiring. So doing online would just made the most sense to me. And also it was something that I didn't have, if I could build it and get it going, it wasn't something that I would have to staff full time of people calling and recruiting and that kind of stuff. It could start off on a smaller budget.
And so what I hear you say, that it was very important to know your market. The fact that you knew the trades market and know that they're not going to call a staffing company. They want to use these particular venues. And so knowing your market is what allowed you to select the correct distribution center of your services. So knowing your market was one thing, and that's awesome. So since you've been an employee and you've been a business owner twice, what's the difference?
Working for someone your whole life is fantastic, but being a business owner is how you build wealth. The other thing is no one will ever work as hard as you do if you own. So as an employee, a lot of times I got to clock in at 8, clock out at 5. I was done, didn't have to worry about it on the weekends. And, whenever we bought the air conditioning company, I became the face of the company. And my cell phone went out to everybody that wanted it because I was doing chamber events. I was doing networking events. I started a group here where I'm from. And it was like, oh, your ears are, call Jeff, here's the cell phone. So, I mean, there were many times that I've answered the phone during dinner to the dismay of my wife. But that's part of business ownership. And, there's no better feeling when the other company bought trade jobs and said, we're buying it. But the caveat of them buying it was that I had to run it for them or got to run it for them. And I couldn't work at the air conditioning company anymore. And so my business partner and I worked that out doing this. This is like the first time I've had a boss in 5 years. It's different, right? It's kind of this weird feeling of having someone to report to and someone that I meet with and, that kind of oversees what I do. So that's been a shift for sure. But I think being your own boss it's incredible, because with risk comes reward. And we're not always going to win. We're not always going to win. People fail more than they succeed. This isn't the first thing I've tried to start. I promise you that. There were a couple others that never made it. But you just keep trying, keep finding that niche. And when it's something within your field it helped. But to your point earlier, knowing your field, it wasn't something I just, thought of like, I'm going to do that. I talk to my friends that are in the trades. I've got friends that are electricians, that are plumbers, that are, that work at supply houses. I went to the sales guys for the supply houses that work that want our business. And I spent months and months just talking to people on, is this really needed? Does it have a need? Does it have, would you use it? What would it look like if it was your ideal place? And then it got to the point where I met with a company that said they could build the beta version. It fit within a budget that I was willing to spend. And that's whenever I was like, okay, if this is aligning like it should, I think I need to do this.
So you mentioned that you started trade jobs.
Mhm,
You, as you just mentioned, you did beta, you spent
mhm,
money.
mhm.
Help me and those who listening to the podcast. What was your thought process in allowing this company to buy out your company and to become an employee again?
The biggest part is whenever I archived the website, I was still making a payment on the loan I took out to build it because I
Okay.
took a loan out from a bank. So when you're making a payment every month, it's like a car payment, and it's just sitting, in a cloud, or whatever it was, doing nothing, generating nothing. It was very frustrating. It was very defeating. So, and I talked to some people. There were a couple of different VC firms, like I said, that were interested, but the right piece wasn't there for them, whether it
Okay.
was who they wanted to run it or the time wasn't right. And then when we actually bought into the software of this company that I met in December of last year, the trainer happened to be part of the family that owns it, gave us a cell phone number. And on a Friday afternoon, one day I just texted and said, "You got a few minutes for a quick call? It's not about, this, it's about something else." He's like, "Yeah, call me." And I called him. A couple of weeks go by. He says, "Hey, I want you to, I think we're interested. I'd like to do a call with me and my sister, who's the other owner of the company."
Okay.
I said, "Okay." So we do a Zoom. And then 2 weeks goes by and you don't hear anything. And then they call back and say, "Let's do it again." And then in May, I got an email that said, "We're interested. We want you to fly out here to us, spend 2 days kind of talking out in detail, all the stuff we hadn't talked about yet, right? Just getting down to the nitty gritty, kind of a due diligence period, right?" So we're going through all of it. And the second day there at lunch, they presented me with an offer, signed the paperwork. We went through another round of due diligence through the end of May, June, August 1st. I flew to Georgia and spent another 2 days and signed the paperwork and became an employee of theirs. So
You always give such good nuggets. So let me see if I can pick through what you said.
okay,
So in making that decision, you looked at what you created, but it wasn't generating money. You had
right,
this loan payment, but it wasn't generating what you need to pay the loan. So you
sure,
had to make a decision.
right,
And so
absolutely,
what's great for you is you already had a collaboration of working with these people and you approached them to say, hey, what do you think about this? And
right.
so I love the fact that as an entrepreneur, you have to be a visionary. So like
Oh,
we
sure,
said, sometimes people fail more than they succeed, but when you fail, what do I do? How do I turn this into something that works? And
right,
so I love that you approach them. And then I love when you said they wanted more than I was willing to give. So you have to negotiate. You have to
right,
know your worth.
right,
Because if you didn't know your worth, you would have taken something and then in hindsight been like, dang, I should not have.
right.
And so it
Yeah,
was able, what they gave you allowed you to clear up your debt. You probably had some money that you could keep to invest. And then now you have a job, but even though you have a job, because you
mhm,
have an entrepreneurial mindset,
mhm,
it's not the same as a person who's never owned a business and looking at the job like this is my lane. And plus, this is something you created.
right.
And because you have a website and you work in the trades,
Mhm,
what would be your advice of how do you hire the right people and then how do you train them?
sure. So just with us, a lot of it is skill set related, right? We've got to have people that fit the right skill set within our trade. You want to, your job ad that you're going to put out is very important. Being very clear. Company culture is very important. People want to work somewhere where they're happy or that meets their values. So making sure that your company culture is highlighted is a really big part. One of the other things too is I like to be able, obviously, do your research on them. We do background checks on everybody. If that's something that you're required in your field, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to look at every social media page you got. If you're putting, crazy stuff on there that doesn't fit with our, with the vision and mission of our company, that
Sure.
will be something to look at. Um, so, because by the time I actually get you in the office with a face-to-face interview, and we want to go through, your background, your education, your experience, maybe do some testing depending on what position you're applying for, to
Mhm.
make sure you do have your licenses like you say you do, because that's required for what we do. I want to get to the point by when the time that is over, pending anything that's outstanding, like a drug test or a background check, that I know whether or not, like, I can make a job offer that,
Okay.
just because it's a very, very tight market right now. If you find someone that you want and you're willing to hire, you need to be able to make that commitment that day, because if not, the next guy's, the next job's going to get them.
It's true. And so earlier you mentioned that you used the Small Business Development Center. Who was your consultant?
Dick Barden, wonderful man. I love Dick Barden. I have raved about him since first meeting him, and then in fact I have actually gotten my brother-in-law and a few other people in contact with him, because he's an incredible resource. This man's just, he's owned his own companies. Then you'll kind of ask the question, and you're like, oh well, he has a law degree too, so he can answer that. And can't give you advice, but he can read over stuff for you. And I'm a
Mhm.
big fan of his. Literally I couldn't have done it without him, because there's so many things that he was able to build, like performance, where we were pulling the number of contractors per state, and if they bought in at this subscription level for this length of time, what are we looking at financially, and all of these just really detailed spreadsheets that he was able to create for me that were so helpful. So I'm a big fan.
I want to say ditto to everything you said about Dick. He is
Great guy.
so passionate and committed to help the small businesses in his area. He's actually out of Stephenville. And as you said, you're in the Dallas Fort Worth area.
Mhm.
He's phenomenal.
Yes.
What advice, Jeff, would you give to a person who's considering thinking about starting their business? What advice would you give them?
So, I think the biggest thing is something that we talked about earlier, and it's knowing your area, knowing what you're being very familiar with the area that you're wanting to open a business. Like I said, I've done a few of these, and a couple that didn't work, a couple that were not specifically in my what I was doing day to day. And I think that was a lot of it, because there's so many things that are unforeseen if you're not working in it day to day. So being in the trades industry, hiring and firing, going through these processes, it really made really good sense to me, because I knew the market, I knew who to ask, and I know what to do. So that would be the biggest thing, is if you're thinking about starting a business of some sort, do your research. That's going to be the biggest thing. Know your market, know what you're doing. Talk to people who've done it. Talk to people who've succeeded and who have failed. Talk to people who are going to be your competitors. And then the biggest thing is it will take more time and more money than you. I promise you that. If you think it'll take 6 months and $10, it's going to take a year and $20. I promise that's what it will be.
Jeff, I really appreciate that. And we're coming to the close of this podcast, but I have one last question for you before we end. How did you overcome the fear?
Fear of just getting over that fear of just pushing forward and doing it is surround yourself with good people. My spouse, my wife, has been just an incredible help in this. My business partner has been good to me. Dick was such a great person to be with. Surround yourself with good, smart people. Know what you know and do it well. Know what you don't know and find people that do it well, right? And then just have that confidence to go on, because in my mentality, which is, like I said, probably not the right thing, but if it doesn't work, you just start over. That's it. If it doesn't work, there are ways to get help, or there are ways to fight your way back. And I don't want to look back at an older age and wish I would have tried something. And once you get that taste of business ownership and being your own boss and being able to run your own show, there's no turning back.
Jeff, again, thank you so much. And I agree. I love, I love it when you said, if it don't work, then just start over.
Just start over.
It really is that simple. People
Mhm.
think it's not, and I think people are afraid to fail,
Sure.
which means then they're afraid to try. And then, like you said, it's 20 years later and you still had that idea when you should have just started. So getting comfortable with failing. So
Right.
I want to thank you for your time. As we come to a close, I always recommend a book. And so the book I want to recommend in this podcast is How to Grow Your Small Business by Donald Miller. It's an excellent book that talks about starting and growing, and that's exactly what we need in this time. Thank you, Jeff, and then we will continue to keep you in our prayers for much success.
Thank y'all. Have a great day.